welcome back to another episode of Media and More. We are on episode 3 of Andor titled Reckoning. I'm the mediocre modeler.
And this is Andre from Indie Arts Midwest. Welcome back.
I tell you what, this I- I'm starting to question myself because I really did like this episode.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
but at the same time, a lot happened in this episode. So
Right.
it just it, So if you asked me a couple of years ago, is Star Wars without the Jedi and the Sith? I would have said no.
Mm.
And I'm slowly but surely changing my mind on that. It's happened a little bit over time, and now I'm trying to figure out why I was giving Andor such a hard time the last time I went through it because I only just watched it once. But it's like it's ramping up. It's getting better. You can definitely feel the pace quicken on in this episode.
And you
I
were
mean, it's
saying
reflected in music as well.
that they released the first 3 episodes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so one thing that I noticed in when I was looking for images for the last one is that people were saying that it was a slow burn for the first 3, and it's like it was for me. It was a build up to this. And I mean, like, if I could imagine anyone who was first viewing who actually enjoyed it, like that's pretty exciting to see it build up to this point because man, it really hits the fan on this episode. So
Right.
I think they did a fantastic job in getting to the climax, and I look forward to discussing it. Also, it's called The Reckoning, but I also on a little side note, I put The Reckoning with a W because that's essentially what's going on here. It's like, man,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
rough. It's
I'll give
kind
you
of
that.
rough. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I tell you, the I can remember the hype.
Hmm.
There was so much hype because there is a big rift between the people that like Rogue One and the people that don't. I mean, if most OG people do not care for Rogue One at all, but people who came into Star Wars a little bit later are more accepting of it. So
Yeah.
I'm just so I can see why people were a little bit hesitant about like this is a slow burn coming into it because they know where it's going, and they were expecting, I guess, action, action, action. You know what we need to do? We need to look up one of the trailers. We need to watch one of the trailers for this,
Mhm.
and then compare it to what we've seen so far, and to see
Okay.
see how well they capture the two. Maybe we'll do that at the beginning of the next episode.
Like a
Now that
trailer
I think,
for Andor or a
yeah,
trailer
just
for. Okay.
the trailers for Andor because like I said, I think there was a lot of hype for Andor and uh, kind of like with Mandalorian. I think there was a lot of they do make it look really really good in the trailers, which is the job of the trailer. And maybe by the first 2 episodes didn't really reveal it didn't match up to what people's expectations were.
Okay.
It was a little bit slow.
Have you
At the end of the
seen?
second.
Have you seen any of the Well, I don't know how frequently you're on YouTube, but I've been seeing some remakes for previews of like The Mandalorian, or the Book of Boba Fett, where they edit it in a way to where it looks like it's from the 80s. And so the editing styles, as far as like the transitions where they're like, you like how like an 80s or like a 70s TV show would start, and then you'd see all the different characters and have their
Oh,
name, and that kind of
oh,
stuff.
yeah,
And
okay.
then they add the film grain and like just some of the ways that they would edit it. Just it had I w- I- it had me questioning like, man, would I watch it based on like this. Like I don't know if I'd like it more, if it had that older look to it. But I just think it's really interesting how it's in a way they're trying to give it more of a Legends look, I guess we'll say,
No, I can
rather
see that.
than
Yeah.
canon. And I think that's really interesting. I mean, of course, some of the droids are kind of way modernized, which I don't know if that has an issue in terms of continuity when it comes to, okay, yeah, these fancy droids before, we don't see them anytime later because, like they really didn't have a need for any of like the assault droids that during,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
during that time. But yeah, I think that's really cool angle that people are. I don't think they're using AI to do it. I think they're actually going in and editing it the proper way. But
I
because AI can get really weird when you try to make it do stuff.
I haven't really paid attention to much. There's
Yeah,
in some ways there's so much noise out there.
yeah,
It's hard to sift through it, but I'm looking trying to get like to the source material. So
hmm,
there are a lot of times where I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll just scroll on by it. So
right. Well, let's get started.
okay.
So, starting off episode 3, we see Cassian climbing into the down ship, and he enters the hallway holding his staff in defense mode and slowly progresses forward. And it's funny because the episode barely started and I was already on edge because, like, what are you gonna see inside of this ship?
Right.
Who are you gonna come across? What? And it's a very large ship, but we only see a small portion of it. Um, and yeah, I was just really concerned about another living crew member, possibly popping out and attacking him or something
Well,
like
yeah,
that
okay.
on
So
its own.
no, they did do that, but at the same time, I'm wondering, did none of you get your because every single one of them had a respirator, and none of
Yes.
them had it on, and they had all that. I mean, it was like that yellow goldish around their mouths. I'm just like, did it just attack them that fast, and they didn't have time, or
Yes. So he gets startled by like some electronics and wiring sparking in the background, and he encounters a few dead guys, and you know pokes one with the staff. I was like, yep, yep,
eh,
that's the right move to make. And then he pokes the second guy with the staff, and then they kind of zoom in on the respirator, and it's next to him, and he's got. I mean, of course, his skin is yellow, but you can tell like the toxins got to him because it's like a little more yellow around his mouth and everything.
right?
And it had me wondering, and I was wondering your thoughts on that too, like they have the respirators, so perhaps they just didn't get to them in time, or not necessarily that whether or not they malfunction, but it was kind of like um they obviously they were compromised before they could even use the ventilator. I wondered what your thoughts were on that.
I don't know. I feel like if something was that volatile, there would be alarms.
Right.
There would be alarms letting them know, you probably need to suit up because this is about to blow. It doesn't seem like it just happened out of the blue. Or at
Yeah.
least mentally, it seems like they would. It doesn't seem like they would be wearing their respirators all the time. So if they went through all the trouble of going and getting the respirator, why weren't you using it?
Hmm.
So, but then again, we still don't know, is this cargo that they were carrying, that
Yeah.
were they shot down?
Yeah.
What happened? What caused them to crash?
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean, because the ship was going down, and I mean, possibly, you could seal off the bridge. I don't know
right.
how that ship works, but
And
yeah, I
we
mean, because
but
it
we
was
do
going
know that
down
it
in a way
wasn't
like it
it
was shot.
right. But we do know it's definitely something that was on the ship and not something from the planet, because that was one of the things we were discussing last time.
Yeah.
So it
Well,
was
because
definitely something on the ship.
yes, and it's just funny how the ship was transporting something. Well, speculatively, the ship was transporting something toxic, and yet the planet has been abandoned over aforementioned toxicity. So it's like,
Right.
which is it? Were
Well,
they?
but see, we don't know that maybe they were just passing through.
Yeah,
They,
and they
I
just
mean,
happened to
that was not their intended target, but
right,
just like,
crash
well,
landed.
we'll go down there and figure it out.
Which is funny, like thinking on it now, like it's just crazy how that guy was just ready to fire in the previous episode. You crash landed on this planet and that's your first move. You're
Yeah,
yellow. It's like,
I
no, I
agree.
mean, granted, I mean,
Figure out what's going on first, before
exactly. One could
but
say that the kids were hostile, but only because dude started shooting. So,
yeah.
you kind of asked for all those little darts in your back. Um, just kind of crazy. So he pokes the second guy with the staff, and that immediately makes the electronics and wiring start to pop, and then the door opens, which reveals a comm room. And so he walks in and he's looks a little confused as he's looking around, but also in awe. And then he walks up a lot closer to one of the devices and he looks at first he examines it and then he looks closer and he sees his reflection. And I just thought that was kind of odd and not necessarily like a as in he's never seen his reflection before because they live right next to a large body of
Yeah,
water.
yeah. It was just like
So,
you know what you look like,
yeah, exactly. He's all like,
but maybe he
so
just has never seen himself looking that clean. That
right. Or I was also thinking like maybe he's never seen something so clean that it's shiny enough to see his
okay,
reflection in it before.
okay. I will
It's
give you that. Yeah.
possible.
Well,
So,
but on that note, that's the one thing that I took away from it.
mhm.
I think to a certain degree that was a little bit of an homage to the set, the original Star Wars, because everything there was in such pristine. Because it is the
Right.
ship, best looking non-imperial ship from that. Well, I guess it might have been because there was that logo. But
Yes, it's
anyway,
been mentioned that that logo is has to do with the separatists,
okay, okay,
and
I'd have
I don't
to.
know what relevance they would have in this time. I guess we're on the back end of where we would consider separatist control because we're now in the imperial control. So
Right. Well,
why
I
they were
mean,
operating under that, I don't know, but they may have that may have something to do. Maybe they were running. If they,
yeah,
that
that's.
makes that there's something. I feel like there's something there with that.
But yeah, no, just seeing that whole control room just made me go, wow,
Perfect.
that's. I mean, we're just so used to we're used to seeing the Millennium Falcon and how
It's
dirty it
gritty.
is,
Right.
And then you walk
Yeah.
into this place like, wow,
Right.
this is top of the line in here.
Yeah. I
So
also noticed when he was entering um into the that main hallway, as he came through, there was like a ladder portion, and I was wondering because I mean, like that would mean like I was trying to distinguish what up means,
right, right,
but
yeah, and I thought the same thing because with the way they shot it, it looked like he would be climbing down, but the way he climbed in laterally. So,
yeah,
well,
it's
but
just odd.
yeah,
I'm not
well,
sure.
okay, but okay, we are talking about a vehicle that does travel in space,
Right, there's no up in space. Yeah.
so it does make sense that there would be hand rungs everywhere just in case because you don't know what direction you'd be going. So,
Right.
okay,
Yeah, I
that
could see
makes
that.
sense.
Yeah, I'll give him that. And so then he starts to I guess everything starts to get overwhelming and he starts to come to terms with everything that just happened in such a short period of time and he gets angry and then starts smashing the equipment around him. And I did understand that sentiment because it's like, dude, this is your first mission and uh your leader gets shot, you stay behind and now, you come in and I could see where it's like, basically you guys crash landing here caused all of this.
Yeah, I guess I have too much of an adult brain for that because
Mhm.
my first thought was okay. Like when the guy got shot on the outside, when the guy got you know Why didn't somebody pick up his gun? You obviously know what a gun is. So
Yeah,
let's increase our weaponry by doing that. That's
right.
kind of always my thought. But these are young kids, and they're not going to think like an adult scavenger would. Because I
No,
thought it was kind of ridiculous. I'm like, why are you breaking everything? What?
I thought that too.
Look for food.
Yeah,
you
for a split
know?
second, I was like, if it weren't for the dead yellow guys, that ship is a good structure to live
Yes,
in.
yeah, right. If it weren't poisonous, it'd be a good place
Yeah,
to hold
for
up for
real.
the winter.
Because I mean, like you guys you guys got your little shacks and everything. Like just move everything, set up shop there. You got. I don't know how big the ship is though, so maybe that probably, maybe who knows? Who it could work. It could have
He can
worked.
go off and start his own tribe.
Right. Um, And so then we cut to Ferrex as it transitions in that same moment of the strike. I thought that was kind of cool too.
Yes, yes,
To a large structured piece of a ship falling down. And I really liked this scene because, for lack of a better word, a haul craft is flying in, and you got the two construction crewmen on that
yeah.
that big metal piece, and they're just riding along. It just kind of made me think of like the fearless construction workers we have,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
here.
yeah.
And like they're not, afraid of heights. They'll just, I just thought it was kind of cool. They're just holding on, and it lands down, and then we see a crew of guys heading in to pull cables, and among those men was Brazo. And we get a close up side angle pass by of Cassian, who's looking on to see if he can find Brazo. And when they finally meet eyes, he gives him a nod, and then Brasso runs over. And Brasso, or he tells him that he might be coming into some money soon, and that he's going to leave some with Marva, and that, she'll pay you what she owes you, but he's going to basically have to go away. And it's it's unfortunate. I mean, like that the turn of events had to go this way, but it seemed like in this particular episode, we could, at least I could say that this is where at least the tension
Yeah,
starts to,
to
like, this
build,
was the
yeah.
moment, where it's like, okay, he's making his rounds, and now he's trying to escape. And so let's see. Um, Brasso sounds a bit uneasy about, what's about to happen, but, like there's not really much he could do about it. And so Cassian also says, or asks if he could just keep an eye on
Mm,
Marva for him, tell her to keep the heat on, that kind of stuff. And Brasso asks, "Where are you going?" And Cassian says, "It's better you don't
yeah.
know. I'll be back and I'll find a way." So it's like, yeah, he's not expecting to be.
You froze for a second.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh.
So is it? So he's not. Yeah, he's not expecting to make it back.
Hmm.
Um.
Not anytime soon.
Right. And so, and I like the because Brasso was already looking in
Hmm.
on Marva. This isn't the first time he's done that. So, but you could see like the pain on his face. He's just like, well, he's losing a brother.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like they've done a really good job of making these close connections because Brasso's only been on screen like what, three times,
Right.
and you already know the brotherhood that they've got.
I wonder, and this is just a little side note, mini tangent, but I wonder if the producer for this show had done Acolyte, would it have been better? Would it have, because I just think that the way that we're receiving information and way that's being translated on screen, it just, we're giving time. And yes, it did take 3 episodes to get to this point. Whereas with Acolyte, they kind of tried to jump in and be like, this is what's happening. We got this badass lady who can, you know, fight really good, and she's going up against Jedi, and I don't know. I mean, of course, there are no Jedi in the show, so
Right.
we have time. But I just wonder, if a different producer headed that show, we probably would have had at least a better story. We a better, more thought out story. So that's just my
Possibly,
opinion,
possibly. No, I mean
because
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah,
I don't recall hearing a lot of pushback on Andor, but then again, I was into so many other things. I don't know for sure
right.
how
No, like I
much.
said, there was a lot of excitement. The same people that loved Rogue One were really pushing for this because they loved Cassian Andor as a character.
Hmm.
Everybody wanted to know more about him. Well, how did he get to the point where he's on the rebellion and the first thing he does is snaps a guy's neck? You
Yeah.
know,
I
so
recall hearing a lot more, not necessarily complaints, but there was just a lot more talk on behalf of Obi-Wan in terms of, I guess, how it was shot. There are things that people just disliked about the writing and the shaky cam issue they were concerned about as well. I still have yet to watch it. It is on my list, but
okay.
yeah, I do recall there were big complaints just on behalf of how it was structured and you know some of the things that one of the actors behind the show was saying because of another movie that he like just there's just a lot of
Well,
controversy,
right.
unnecessary controversy.
I didn't hear any of that,
So
but
yeah.
I live a very sheltered life.
Yeah, well, you
I
stay on
really
YouTube
I
long
pick and
enough.
choose what I want to hear and listen to. So I try and block out a lot of that noise.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to avoid, like, when YouTube is your TV for the most part,
Right.
and then
And that's
depending on what you feed into, they're just gonna just throw you the drama content, and you kind of have to learn to avoid it, or look, or just yeah, just skip past it if you can. But yep, yep. Some of the YouTubers I watch quite a bit, they're very opinionated on behalf of pretty much all things. But yeah,
right, right. Well,
plenty of things that I'm interested in as well. So let's see. So the space bus arrives, and with the buyer, and after landing, I didn't remember the patron guy who was talking to him. Do you happen to remember that guy? He had the guy sitting across from the buyer on the bus. I don't remember
what
his name. Like,
neither
he
do
gave
I.
his name, but I just forgot. But he
Well,
throws.
just before I found it interesting that did you notice that the stairs going up to the bus was a
This.
droid?
I have a note. Yes, I have a note about
I'm
that.
just like,
Stare by it.
like,
Yeah, stare
well,
by it.
that's he has got to be the saddest bot.
Right. I even have it here, like, I've been getting stepped on my whole life. It's like, yeah, that's your job. That's your life.
I
Dang,
guess
man.
everybody's got to have a job, man.
Then again, some droids are proud of what they do, but I don't know about this one. I'm not so sure. But yes, I definitely noticed stare by for sure. Oh man, nobody wants a model of that.
Nobody.
Oh, that's sad. Oh man. And then so the other patron who was sitting across from him, whom we can't remember his name, he makes a remark. He was like, "Are you staying in a hotel?" And the buyer says no. And he's like, good, because they're basically a scam.
Hmm.
And he's also like, guard your wallet.
Mind your wallet.
There you go. Mind your
Mind
wallet.
your
That's
wallet.
it. So, he was a nice guy, though.
Yeah, I mean, at
For
the
the
end of
short
the
time he
day,
was on
just
film, on camera.
right. So yeah, I mean, just it's that whole sales guy camaraderie because even when he first started talking to him, he's just like, so I'm in propulsion, and
Hmm.
he's like, what are you here for? He's just like, oh, he didn't even say. He's just rather not say. Got it.
Right.
That's how you keep in business. So I could see them bringing him back maybe later on for something else, but yeah, it got the point across is to because it's giving you what the feel of what's the name of the plant, Ferrex,
Barracks.
what
Yeah.
it's like. It's a good
Right.
place to do business, but you got to keep your head on the swivel.
He's obviously a regular
Yes,
on that
definitely.
planet. So he walks off into town, and then it cuts to Bix, who is sitting at a food shop waiting on the buyer to approach. And so she pays and then catches up to him. And so she fills him in on the current situation involving Cassian and the buyer dismisses most of it because, as far as they know, the information from the bulletin was a bit vague
Right, right. He said
or
they didn't
just
mention him
limited
by
on
name, so
information. But they also didn't, they're not aware that the Preox Morlana security guys have at least a hologram image of Cassian. So
right.
they know who they're looking for, but they don't know that they know.
Well, I found it interesting, right? I found it interesting that she's just like he already knew, just like okay, he killed a couple of guys. Okay, well,
Right.
I guess we're just gonna have to, you
Yes.
know,
We
we,
better be
we need
quick
to
about
step
it.
it up. We need to
Yeah.
step up our pace. So
What'd you think about that staff thingy?
I, I see.
Walking stick?
It was okay. So it was a
Dueling
walking.
cane?
Uh, I don't know. So when I first saw it, I thought maybe it was some kind of an homage to the Jedi
Yeah, it
because
did seem that way.
yeah, because it really did. And and when he was walking in the mountains with it, it kind of gave him the impression of being um uh not feeble old man, but just he needed a walking stick. But when it was time to do business, he hit the button, the thing retracted. He stuck it he was just like, I'm ready to go.
I don't recall it really touching the ground a whole lot when he
Yeah,
was
nope.
walking with Bix. It was kind of hovering above. So it's like, what is this? Like, what do
Maybe
you?
maybe it was
It's
supposed to
maybe
be
it's
more of
a
like a gentleman's
yeah,
cane.
yeah. That's why I said dueling cane. This audio book that I have been listening to, it meant they have actually that's the second audio book where a dueling cane was mentioned. Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, it's very common in the society on the audiobook. So that's where my mind went with it. But yeah,
Okay.
it's like a versatile walking stick slash, it's pretty much whatever blunt it's a blunt object that you may or may not need and
Right,
also
right.
retracts. But I
That
thought it
that
was kind of
that
interesting.
that for his character, no one would even think twice about him having.
Right. And
So
also
yeah,
resembles a lightsaber to some small degree.
yeah,
And so yeah, you're right. He asked if he killed the men, or yeah, if he killed the men on Morlina, and that's when she nods and confirms. And so she tells the buyer where he is in East Dock Building 9. And so we then cut to the Preox carrier coming out of hyperdrive. And I have to admit, I don't know, this is just me personally. I think it looked cooler in hyperdrive than it did when it came out of hyperdrive. I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know what it was. I think it was the gold that just it obviously the Empire has a more distinguishable gray or
Right,
just
right.
metal look, and so the Preax guys have a little more, I don't know, flair. Um,
Yeah.
so
It,
I don't know. If I were to paint it, I would probably keep it more of a gray. I'd take that gold off. I just didn't
it's
really like it too much.
I didn't like. It was different. The ship was different. I liked the drop ships better.
Yeah,
Those were a
the
little. I'm
break
like,
off
oh
was
yeah,
cool.
when they. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, you sent the render.
Hmm.
I saw the render, and I didn't. I don't think that we got the idea of where exactly those were. And
Right.
so, based on the render, you could see that they were just like docking spots underneath the big triangle part. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And then you realize actually how small they are compared to
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
a, a lot of
Actually,
other drop ships.
I'm looking at some of the renders. Yeah, I am. Well, at least one or two of them I am seeing where they were placed.
And
But
these
yeah,
guys, they
but
were
yeah, you
shoulder to
cut to
shoulder in that thing.
yeah, you cut to them all just cramped in there. It was really interesting. It's like, okay, so even if they had caught Cassian, there's barely any room for him in here.
Well,
Hopefully they have like a
well,
holding zone.
they were probably taking in consideration that he'd probably take a couple of them out,
Hmm.
and so they
That's
have
a fair
the extra
point.
room.
That's a fair point. But yeah, so they come out of they break off from the carrier and they're making their way into the planet. And then we see a very non-confident Cyril standing next to a very determined Linus.
Oh, Linus was pumped.
Yeah.
He was ready. He's just like, I've been waiting for
Right.
this.
Right. Even and Cyril even looks over at Linus just like, are we sure we want, you could see it in his face. He didn't have to
Yes.
say it. And yeah, and Cyril's just looking right on ahead. And so they're going through a bit of turbulence on their way down, and then you see the pilot kind of hit that switch, and then they kind of like
Like,
the
yeah.
turbulence kind of calms down a little bit, and then let's see, then we cut to B, which finally saying the droid's name.
Yeah, B.
I wrote B2 emo, but B.
Right.
And he's traversing the town on his way back to Marva. And as he's traversing, we see like a carriage pass by, and then it transitions directly to a flashback of B entering in to that um, same ship, the downshipped on Canary.
I
That was a pretty good
I
transition.
love that transition
Yeah,
because
they're really good at that.
you just went from this raggedy beat up B to this
To
nice
clean,
pristine. I'm just like,
yeah,
wow.
right.
I didn't think I would like that droid. I really like that droid.
Me too.
That's a good droid.
Yeah, it's a shame that we started the show with him in this state, but that just we needed to see the age,
Right, right.
that
Yeah, it gives
he's the
us an idea
literal.
of,
Other
yeah,
than seeing how old
passage of time.
Cassian is, like we're seeing all these characters older, but yeah, that was a clean transition. I loved it so much. And then he mentions the vapor density is acceptable and the airborne concentration minimal, no detectable gas toxicity. So the ship is safe, obviously, because Cassian's already in there. But
Right.
this is when we are revealed to a young Marva and her companion Clem, and so they are after a console unit. And Clem is unsure about them continuing, but Marva is determined to push forward, and she's unconcerned about the toxic gas as it's mostly dissipated.
Right. And she's just like, take your mask off.
Right. So I do like that about her. Like she was just very forward,
Yeah, she's
even in like in the present
she's a
day.
very strong woman.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And Clem is more worried about the time that they have, as they only have about 20 minutes to pull it off before the Republic frigate comes in. And so they overhear clanking in the distance, and Clem is like, I don't want to know what that's about. And Marvin gets slightly distracted by all of the salvageable content around. She mentions like some kind of fuel cells, and then she
Hmm.
kind of asks B like, what would those go for on the market? And B's like, are we talking about, what do you say, barter, or he said something barter or something else. Uh, but then Clem is trying to, pull him back to reality, like, hey, like we don't have time for this.
Yeah, we gotta go. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they move ahead after a bit of more clanging, and the scene cuts to Casa hitting various components around the comms room in anger, and then Marva and Clem enter. And as they do, um, just as a side note, did Cassian inherit Clem's blaster? Is that the same? I think that's the same blaster.
I think so. I'll have to.
I'm pretty sure it's
It
the.
probably is. It
Yeah,
probably.
I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't catch that the first time, but the second time I was like, hey,
Well,
like, hey, that's, because at first I thought he got that blaster from one of the Preox Morlana
right, right.
security guys, but instead, it would make a lot more sense and have a lot more sentiment if it came from Clem.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was kind of cool. And so Cassian drops his staff, because he gets startled, but then he picks it up and then he kind of
Like,
points it at him in
yeah.
defense. And he's essentially saying like something along the lines of get back or stay away or whatever. He keeps repeating the same thing over and over again. And so um, B2 mentions that the frigate is approaching, and I believe he said it's in orbit or something like that. And so then we cut to Ferrex as the dropship approaches a landing spot outside of town, and the crew of four plus Cyril and Linus come out, and they exit the dropship, and Linus begins giving orders to the other two teams.
Linus, he loves that shoulder cup.
He's yeah, right. He's good at his
He's all,
job. He is. I
he,
mean, like you can tell that
which
he's
makes it
he's
hard to not like the guy. I mean,
right.
it's just like you're just on the wrong team.
Hmm.
I love the enthusiasm, but you're just on the wrong team, dude. So
And it's funny because in their mind, they're on the right team. They're just trying
yeah,
to establish control. And, like he's been doing this for so long. Like at least he's owning his status as,
yeah, yeah,
sergeant. I think he's sergeant,
yeah,
if I remember
Sergeant.
correctly. Right. So yeah, he's definitely he's running the show. You can tell like Cyril is kind of along for the ride on this one. Like even when they landed, there was this kind of agitated looking Ferrex
Yeah,
worker who was just like leering at him, and he kept looking at him and like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be here, you know. And that was kind of the first sign, like, yeah, the tension's already building. But the thing is, um, they are in control of this planet in terms of its production. So
right.
to some
Well,
degree,
so is that when isn't that when Brasso and his crew they're pulling wires out of a component and they see him and someone says the blues are here, like they could because their uniforms are blue and just like it's a long time, it's been a long time since the blues have been down here. Well, they're on the hunt for something, or they're on the hunt for someone.
yes, that
But
is about. Yep, that
is that
happens right after that. Yep.
okay?
Yep.
So
So that's
now
East
we
team.
have it, we have it in our mind that everyone knows who they are,
Hmm.
but they haven't had the need to come down there for a long time.
Right.
So that's why it's and you would think that everyone in town would have seen the bulletin from uh, the night before talking about Cassian. Not that they they just put the bulletin out there, but
Right.
no one seemed concerned. Everyone was
Right.
just like,
And it doesn't seem like everyone knows Cassian
oh
too.
yeah, right, no,
So at least you got that on. Even though they appear to be like a small town, which really they're not, because that's a whole city, at least from the wide angles shots that they've shown from up above. Yeah, that's a whole city. So yeah, it's easy to get lost there
yeah,
and to be unknown. Um but
which is
yeah.
seems to be Cassian's mo because we
Yeah.
still
Oh
don't know
yeah.
what he does.
Nope, he's just a odd job guy, I guess, the guy and not, the guy who gets it done,
Well,
whatever that may be.
because however, I thought where they were disassembling the ship, you would think
Hmm.
that would be a secured location. These big heavy pieces are falling down, and he just kind of shows up there. No one questions him. No one is just like, "Hey, buddy, I need you to." And the guy comes over, and Brasso comes and talks to
Yeah.
him. Nobody questions him wherever he goes. It seems like that would be
Right.
a lot down work side, and
Well, Brasso did mention something about working, I believe in episode 1, but yeah, you still make a good point. Like, what does that mean? Like, maybe he
he
was
works when
working
he
there
want
when.
to. Yeah,
Yeah, I know he's one of those guys.
right,
Obviously not, because he owes so many people credit. So yeah,
right,
you think that pretty much most of his money would go to straight to Brasso, and for
and
some
paying off.
reason
Yeah.
keeping the heat on at Marva's for whatever reason. That's a strong point they made. Like, yeah, she really doesn't keep that heat on
No, right.
like she should. Um, and so Cassian waits for the buyer in building 9, and he's just kind of looking around, and then he walks up and shuts the door. And when he shuts the door, we get another flashback to young Cassian still or Cassa, still in defense mode, yelling the same thing, basically get away or stay back. And uh Clem accounts for the time that they have left to complete their work, while Marva is now concerned about this kids' well-being, because they weren't expecting to come across anyone. And so Casa backs into a corner and Marva tries to reason with them. And just to the side, Clem, or she says, they'll kill him. And Clem replies, they'll kill us.
Well,
And,
okay. So Clem says something first. He tries to say something to Casa, and he
oh,
responds
right,
back in
right.
his language,
Yeah,
and
he
she
doesn't
goes,
understand.
"He doesn't understand you." So that's when
Right.
she went into like mother mode,
Mother. Yeah.
and so I
Hmm.
think she says uh, they'll kill him. They'll kill him when they find out that they've killed somebody, one of their people
Yeah, she
out
laments
there, and then
that his people killed a Republic officer, and it will be open season when the
right.
frigate lands. It's
And
like,
so I'm just
yeah,
like, are they really gonna go searching for, who did this? To me, whatever the ship was carrying, the cargo or whatever is the most important part. If the
hmm
guy left the ship and got killed by, you
it's
know,
possible. I mean, if they showed up and they see that a Republic officer has a bunch of darts in his back, at first they're going to be like, okay, I thought there weren't supposed to be people here. This is an
right.
abandoned planet. So, yeah, maybe,
My thought was just like, okay, let's get what we need to get and go.
maybe that lack of scanning for life signs on the planet that they don't do also in Acolyte. So, maybe it's just an oversight. They're just
All right.
determined to get down there.
So
I don't know.
apparently this planet wasn't as big of a disaster as they said it was.
Yeah, just like what was the planet on Acolyte that they came from? Brindok.
Red
Just like
Dog, yeah.
Brindok, same thing. Wasn't supposed to be anybody here, but plenty of people here. Really interesting how they just overlook those things. Nobody does a planetary checkup,
Make well,
Send a droid down, probe
yeah,
droid.
well,
That's what they're for. Probe droid. Um, so she calls B over and tells him to get the drowser. And Clem disagrees immediately. He's just like, he's got people here. And that's when she goes over the whole, they killed a Republic officer and that,
yeah, they're
and
gonna, yeah,
they're
they
gonna
killed.
open season. And so Casa lunges at Marva and she grabs and catches him and then drowses him.
Yeah,
So he's out. Which yeah, which is funny. Like I appreciate the fact that he tried, I guess, to defend himself, but it's like this is your first time out,
you didn't
and
you didn't have
you're
one
not
dart in your dart
trained.
gun.
You're not trained.
No.
And I think at least he was poking all the people prior with the blunt end of his staff, because
Yeah.
I don't even
Well,
know. Was it a pointy ended staff? I don't
no,
remember.
no, it was the blowgun. They were
Oh,
all blowguns.
oh yeah, he
That's
didn't have
that's
any. You
that's
don't
what
get
just
any
like you didn't have
darts.
one dart.
You don't get any darts. No, this is your first expedition. We can't trust you with this power.
Wow, you should dart somebody in the dude.
Yeah, right. We're not even there yet. I was just testing it. So Clem makes one last remark, but Marva's already made up her mind.
Yes.
And so then we cut back to Ferrex as Linus and Cyril's team are headed to Marva and Cassian's home. And so they ring the doorbell and she answers after the second ring, and they basically just tell her, "Hey, we're here for Cassian Andor. We have a warrant." And before she could even reach to do anything, because I think I didn't catch this before. I think she was trying to reach to shut the door, which
Yeah.
would have been a bad move.
Right.
Um, and so they just push their way in, and then we cut to Bix, who returns to her job and chastises Tim for about some unfinished work that had been piled up in the alley, and he's just like, "Oh, I forgot," and it just kind of had me wondering, like, well, why were you so distracted? Like, what was, like he was just
Right.
casually just sitting on his little tablet there, you know, before she came in, and like he gives her this weird look as he walks by, and I just didn't understand what that was about. Like, it wasn't like a look of, I don't know, just like, "Hey, I'm just happy to see you. I'm just looking at you to admire you." Just like, It was kind of like one of these kind of looks like, oh, I don't know what's gonna happen in the next couple hours, but you're
Right.
gonna be all mine.
So I guess they didn't know that the Preox guys were security was on the
Yet,
planet. Okay.
yet,
But
and then
but he knew they were coming.
yes,
He knew they were coming.
and so the crew. It cuts back to the crew who are searching Cassia's room, and they're just tearing that house
Which
up.
I'm like, what were they looking for? They were looking for him.
Right.
And then they're turning over laundry baskets. And I'm like,
Right. Okay.
what were you expecting to find? I mean,
And to be fair, and I know this might be a bit of a tangent, but I never really understood the whole concept of ransacking anybody's place.
me neither.
Like, you
If you were
think it would
looking,
be
yeah,
easier to find things if it's all sitting out like this. Like, okay, I got a bunch of notes in my desk. So you're gonna flip my note over and then start looking through the papers? Like, you know, I
I,
just you see that so much in
you
movies
know
and
what?
shows.
Honestly, I think that's more of a movie trope than it. Cause I
Oh
don't
yeah, for
think
sure. It's a power
anybody,
move.
any, yeah, well, no, definitely a power.
Possibly.
If
I mean,
they
I
were,
have seen stuff.
I could understand if they were looking for something in particular. If they were looking, if they knew he had that imperial
Oh, right.
encoder and they were
Mhm.
looking for it, well, that doesn't make sense because you
You
might
dump
destroy it or
Right, you dump it
damage
on
it
the
by going,
floor.
oh, there it is. You could have just like that.
Right.
Like
Right.
it had a lid.
And so Cyril walks up to Marva and he's basically trying to intimidate her, like, it'll stop if you tell us where Cassian is. And then Linus comes up and says, and we have another resident, and they're talking about B.
Hmm.
And so he walks up to B and he starts asking him questions. And Marva tries to come in, basically says, "You don't have to say anything." And then Cheryl shouts for them to shut her up. Just kind of like, dude, you're just mislanding. And during this same
Yeah.
time, they're also looking outside, like, all right, people are starting to build up out there. It's not looking too good. And we then cut to Cassian trying to communicate with B over the comms, and they're all just right there.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I just like. Why can the comms like
Be silent.
speak? Yeah, like why
Yeah.
he's talking to a droid. Like it, what?
I
So
was thinking the same thing, just like why is even if he had it set up to where you could hear what Cass was saying, why couldn't he respond internally?
digitally,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm just like
it's like a
yeah,
reverse MacGuffin.
it's
Like normally the MacGuffin is
no,
just
it's
something that.
bad writing.
Well, yeah, but like normally the MacGuffin is just something that's thrown in to help kind of push things along, and it doesn't necessarily need to make 100% sense because you're appealing to a general audience. But in this case,
Yeah.
it was kind of like, oh, the bad guys just needed something in order to track him down. So that's when we
Well,
see Linus pull out that
pull out the little
device,
yeah.
conveniently as well, and so he sees that it's saying that he's at first he says east and then he says northeast because I'm sorry it was still trying to zero in on his location. And so but getting back to what Cassian was saying, he was just also telling B to tell Marva that that he was sorry and to remember to tell her to keep the heat on. And
Right.
so after they tracked his location, we cut back to the buyer who enters and greets Cassian, but also he makes sure to ask if they're alone. And so Cassian says, I am.
Right.
And so we cut back to the townspeople as now a crowd has been growing outside and they're getting angry about, them basically picking on Marva. And they're like, she's an old lady. Like, what are you doing? And you could really like that. You could just really feel the tension building. Like, yeah, you guys came in and messed up. Like, there's
Right.
a peaceful way you probably could have pulled this off. And I'm pretty sure, like, of all people, yeah, of all people that you came in and
Mess
busted it
with
on, it had to be one of the
Marva.
previous presidents
Yeah, Marva
of
is the
of the
one
city.
person that they should not. If you want to make the whole town mad, mess with
Yeah,
Marva.
right. So I did
because I
like that.
guarantee
Like,
she has done something for every person in that town.
oh yeah. Considering how like yeah, like and that's cool because it's not just that she's taking care of Cassian his whole life. Well, not his whole life, but when
Right, right, right.
from when he was young. But you could just tell that based on her character that that translates into whatever, just like you said, whatever she's done for the town, like she's going to put that same amount of energy into other people. And I haven't looked into the history of that, but it's just good writing when you can kind of sense like, okay, these people are getting upset out here. So yeah, she's super important. It's not
Right.
just because she's an old lady. So I did like that. And Willman runs off to go tell his dad, and Linus and Searle head towards Cassian, and apparently it's about a 10-minute walk. But realistic, it's like, yeah, you guys should probably get out of here.
Right.
Regardless,
Right.
it's time. It is time to go. And so the buyer asks how much, and Cassian replies 40,000 credits. And so at first the buyer protests, and Cassian claims that his amount is cheap, and he also talks about how you know, it's that an Imperial Star Path unit and its quality in terms of it, like it's sealed and it has these crystals in it, and the moment it gets plugged into function, the price goes down, which is kind of interesting. It's just like buying a car, taking it off the lot. Same thing.
Right. Yeah, yeah, but at the same time, well, I'm like, how many other buyers did he have for it? Just like
That's a fair point.
he's pretty much stuck with this was his last gambit. He's trying to get enough to get him off that planet and pay all his debt. So
Mhm.
he was like a scared rabbit. I mean,
Yeah, I found myself getting a little annoyed. There are some points in this show where Cassian is kind of like unbearable. It's like, dude, can you just calm down for three
yeah,
seconds and like listen? Because I mean, um, Luthen, the buyer, um, he has a very resolved demeanor, and even in the face of all this, he was not really like swayed
he
by
was
Cassian. He
not
was just
phased
kind of
one
more
bit.
just like a trying to figure this guy out, kind of angle. And I really like that. But yeah, like Cassian's just always ready to start pointing the gun, man. What,
Well,
uh,
but that's just been his go-to. I mean,
yeah, oh,
it's
yeah, for
up
sure.
until now.
Especially as of like the last few days, for sure. He's just definitely on edge. I'm pretty sure prior to that, Cassian probably, well, we don't know for sure, but it just he was trying to, like, in episode 1, he was just trying to be like, "All right, I'm not trying to do anything," but after that all happened, man, it was just like, "All right, I'll point this thing at anybody,"
Mm, yeah.
or unfortunately. And so they talk a bit about the quality, and the Luthen basically mentions that, um, he's just essentially trying to make sure that he's not getting scammed. And afterwards, we cut to um gosh, the dad. I had his name. The dad
Yeah.
of
I don't remember.
shoot. So we cut to
Well, I think
Salam Pak.
okay.
Yeah, Salam. And so he runs in and tells Bix, that hey, these Peox guys are here. They're looking for Cassian. And she's like, instantly flustered, I need time to think. And then Tim waltzes over there and just basically like, don't. And she's like, how do you know what we're talking about? And then he makes that smug face, just like, you know, the
Yeah, well,
defeated
yeah,
look. Yeah.
well, he can take care of himself.
Yeah.
Like,
And so essentially, and then she asks, like, did I tell you about uh him being from Canary? And he's like, I don't remember. And she's like, well, I do. And then she's like, just how could you, that was just such a disappointment. Like, I'm glad that that finally came in. Like, he got the reaction he deserved. But it's like, what did
Yeah.
you think was gonna happen? Like she was just like
Well, so
you
he
know,
was no, he was hoping that they would just come and get him and they would take him off and it's just like, "Oh, Cassian's gone.
I know I'm so
Oh,
sad. I'm gonna throw myself
well,
on you.
are you
Now we
coming
can begin our
over tonight?"
lives.
Right.
Right. Right. Like, no, bud.
Well, yeah, no.
And so as he's running out, Salam is like, what'd you do? And he's running after Bix. And this is kind of where my notes kind of stopped, but this is also where things start happening kind of rapidly. So I don't know. You have
Well, okay, so if we could go back just a little bit,
yeah.
um, when Cassian and Luthen were talking,
Hmm.
he got really into because he kept saying that he knew Cassian. He's just like, well, I know you, and because he had mentioned something about, um, and then maybe this is a little bit in another flashback, a little bit further on, but he was saying,
It's a
well,
little after, yeah.
yeah, they were talking about how the guys were coming and if they get caught, they would probably hang us in the square, like they did your dad, and he's just like, how do you know that? Who
Yeah.
are you? You know, and then now he's thinking,
Luthen is the
Cassian
spy.
is thinking Luthen is the spy, and he's like, to what end? You know, I mean
That was
that.
a good line.
Yeah, well, and so and Luthen is really pressing him, and he's
Hmm.
saying, so how did you come across this? It's just like, I get stuff and blah, yeah,
I'll
you
give you a
said, yeah,
thousand more
this is
credits if you tell me.
yeah, this isn't you bribing a dock master into leaving components for you to steal. This is a little bit more. How did you get this? And he was saying, is there what he said there?
He just slipped on
The
some
empire,
gear.
the empire is fat and satisfied.
Right.
You put on a uniform, you act
Just
like
the
you know where you're
dirty
going,
hands.
dirty
Yeah.
hands and a toolbox, and they look right past you.
Right.
And then that's when Luther's and he brings it on he's like, you're absolutely right, but they won't be able to do that forever. They won't be
Hmm.
able to walk around it like oh, the day will come.
Yeah, I like
So
how he was saying all this. Cassian's trying to answer or ask him questions, and he's just like, "Nope, I'm monologuing right now.
right.
Like you're
but
gonna
but
hear this."
but now you're starting to get an idea of like Luthen he's a lot more than he's not just a buyer.
Right. He's got some
So
bravado in him for sure.
um but that one at some point okay, it's building
Right.
because what's the dad runs over to like some chimes or something and starts banging boom 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 boom, and then somebody else
This
sees that.
his
Yeah,
son
the son
follows
walks over
suit.
somewhere else and starts banging. And then
Yeah.
slowly but surely, as people hear it, people start closing their shops up. And then just like all these different people all around town are going boom, boom, boom,
Right.
boom, boom, boom. So nobody knows what that means, but it's not
Well, the town people.
specific. It's not specific to like Cassian's in trouble, but it's like they've all agreed that this is a signal that something's getting ready to go
It's
down.
time to close up shop.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they do that. And Luthen, and so you've got Luthen and Cassian in the building trying to still negotiate. And then he goes, what's that? What's going on? Cassian hears it and he realizes, okay, we have a problem.
Yeah, and I do like how when Cyril and Linus are walking, and Cyril asks, like, what this? And then this is kind of the downside to being so uninformed about the cultural side of things, which is probably
Yep.
something I'm going to bring up in every show that we watch on behalf of Star Wars. Um, is that, he's just like, oh, it's an intimidation tactic. It's like, no,
No,
this is just a warning.
yeah, you
This is
guys
a
are in
warning.
big trouble.
And it's not necessarily that they're and it's not a warning to the people who are rolling in, it's kind of like a warning to everyone else. Like, all right, you guys need to get inside because it's kind of like the old Western where everybody's shutting the shutters.
Right, right, right.
It's kind of that's how I saw it. But yeah, I just think that that was just a misplaced thought online. It's just part like, dude, you don't even have any idea. Like, it's not that the town is going to turn on you; they're just trying to protect themselves. So it's
Right.
like everybody's shutting it down, and so now, yeah, you should worry. And
So,
if I remember, yeah, go ahead.
well, no. Um, uh, so now, once Cassie and Luthen realize that there was something going on, Luthen turns to
Hmm.
Cassie and he's like, "Do you have a transporter on you?" And he goes, "Yeah,
Yes,
give it here." And I'm surprised that he just readily gave it to him. I
me
mean,
too.
he just took over and
Yeah,
he
give
took
it.
it, threw it, and smashed it. Rule number one, don't ever have anything
Oh,
don't
you
bring
can't
everything with you
control.
you can't control. Right.
Right.
And so I'm just like, okay, that's a good rule. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And then we go to um
Linus.
so Linus.
Yeah, the teams are Linus is basically getting the teams because um they're starting to surround the building and they're supposed to be waiting for Linus to come in as
Right,
backup.
okay. But then you've got Bix running to try and because she knows where Cassian is. So
Yes.
she's running and she runs by some of the guards and they're just like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
I
Where
didn't
are
like
you running
that.
to? Well, he
Yeah.
goes, he I didn't like it
Everyone
at first. I
yeah.
really did, but he goes, you're kind of running with some intent. You like
I mean,
you
he's
know
not
something.
wrong. He
No, he
wasn't
was
wrong.
not. I mean, so I'm going to give him points for being a little bit alert. So they stop him,
Right.
and she, so they're detaining her, and the boyfriend is still
Is staying.
trailing.
Right.
Okay, something else happens, and she fights back, and she gets whacked in the head.
Yeah, he like
Right.
yeah, she tries to like run off and then yeah, the guard pushes her up against the there's like some metal.
Well, yeah. And so she's bleeding, and so they're trying to like handcuff her to the wall, or they handcuff her to the wall or whatever. And he comes down the stairs at some point and
Yeah.
sees her, and it was like, "What? What are you doing?" And yet again, his jealousy gets him in the way.
Right. She's bleeding and then he starts making his way forward and freaking
One,
trigger happy guard
yeah,
guy
one of the
behind
guys
him,
just boom takes him out, shoots him, kills him, which is
which technically he broke command in doing that, right?
yes,
Because
he
he
did.
wasn't he's
Yes, he
not
did.
running the show because the
No,
guy
he's
was like
not.
he was just telling the dude to stay back. I mean, even if
Yep.
he came back, you could just you know
And you know what? I know they're stunned. Why wouldn't they stun him?
right,
So,
right.
okay, he shoots him, obviously kills him. Did he deserve to die for what he did?
That's tough.
That
Yeah.
is tough, but even Bix was like, "Oh, it's him." I'm just like,
Right.
wait a minute, 5 seconds ago you were mad because, and but maybe he didn't quite deserve that. But
Yeah. I didn't he just I mean, maybe not that, but yeah, that jealousy, man. It got you
yeah,
killed.
it did.
It
So,
got you killed
but what gets me is like so the commander of those
of
troops,
that squad, yeah.
he was on top. He was the one that said catch the girl, right?
Right.
He said, "Give me your weapon." He takes the weapon, go back to the ship because
Right.
it's still like boom, 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 boom. The whole town is just going crazy.
By myself? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. By yourself.
you kind of did, but as the alarms were going, all the people that were out in the shipyards were coming back in town, and
Hmm.
you see Brasso kind of walking by, and he sees the ship and one of their little transport ships, and he just kind of walks by, and then he just kind of you see him walking away at a very fast pace. So just like, okay, you've done something, but I don't know, I don't know what.
Sabotage.
we get back to Cassian in the Cassian Luthen, and they know they're coming. You can kind of see them. They're at the doors. They're pretty much surrounded. This is just before the firefight begins, and uh, there is he asks, is there a way out of here? Is there
Hmm.
a way out of here? It's just like, will that tunnel take us out by the old furnace? And it's just, yes, it will. And it's like, okay. And he said, uh, something about, so, well, they're at the door. Well, I'm going to blow the door. I've set charges. And he said, well, when did you have time to set charges?
Yeah, right. He's like,
rule
rule number two.
Rule number two: build your exit on your way in. I'm just like, oh my
Right.
god, I need to remember that.
Yeah.
Luthen is he? That dude is on top of it.
It was at that point that I started counting the guards getting taken down.
Hmm.
And so yeah, he blasts the door. That's two right there.
Okay, yeah, yep.
And
And then
then
that's
guard
and then they start coming in. So you had the
ground
box,
guy.
huh?
Oh right, yes, yes.
So
Yeah,
so
the
the box was he had the box he was trying to sell like in the middle of the room, hidden kind of behind a piece of metal, and you had all these chains hanging, these different things hanging, these heavy pieces of metal hung by chains. And so in the course of their battle, these things were getting shot and they were just falling from the ceiling.
hmm
Cassian is still trying to grab the box.
determined to get
Yeah,
it.
because that's his gambit. That's the only thing he's got. Luthen's
Right.
like, let's go, leave it, let's go. He's still trying to get it. He's avoiding. So that goes back and forth. There's a guy on a scaffolding shooting down at him. I mean,
hmm
it's just breaking loose, and you've got the guy going, "We're under fire. We're under fire."
He went down. He
Yeah.
went down quick. The guy up
So
top went. It took a little time.
yeah, he had a good vantage point, and he still couldn't shoot.
Yeah,
Still
yeah.
couldn't
He
shoot.
did get Cassian once though.
Oh yes, he did. That's
Yeah, he
that's
got
true.
him. And then another one of those uh big metal pieces came down in it. And this happens quite a bit in movie where it's not the object falling that gets him, but it's like the tension of the either it's like a rope or a chain
Right.
and and whatever that was attached to that got him. So
Yeah, it
it
wrapped around
wasn't.
his leg and it slid him off to some.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I mean okay. I forgot about that guy. Yeah, that was that guy number 2 or
I
maybe
think that
guy
was guy
number
number two.
3.
One guy actually got shot, and then one that guy got dragged off. We don't know if he died or not, but you know,
Yeah. But yeah, Cassian got hit with uh a metal and another thing that reminded me the reason why that reminded me of a trope is just the way that he was laying. I've seen that, like whoever gets hit with the chain or the rope that's attached to a thing always has that same like crouched posture.
yeah,
And it's not too much of a trope. It's not like a complaint. I've noticed that in movies it come up. So yeah, so Cassian gets injured twice. And he saves. Don't they save each other?
yeah. I think
At
there
one
was
point,
something coming down. He pushes Luthen out of the way.
yeah. Yeah, and
So
then they exit.
yeah, yeah. So about that time, that would be about the time that they had the guy that they sent back to the ship. He
Yes.
gets in the ship and he's just like, let's get in
Trying to
the air
haul
because they
ass.
needed some air support.
Yeah.
So he gets in and he's flipping switches and he gets up and he starts to fly away. And you can see this long cable attached to the bottom of the ship and it's attached to this just big hunk of metal. And it starts flying all janky and he's like, he can't figure it out. And I'm just like, land,
That's
land.
a good point. That's a good
If
point.
it's not
They
flying
never
right, then
do.
land.
They
And
never
so
do.
he like swings it around. It gets caught. It gets caught on something and basically wraps itself tetherball style.
Hmm.
And it
Yeah,
smacks
that's so funny.
into
Yeah.
another thing and just blows up. And so now the Preox guys are freaking out. They're just like,
Hmm.
what was that? And was that such and such? I don't know. And Linus and I, you got to be better than it. He goes like, we're surrounded.
Mm-hmm.
or they're behind us. We're surrounded. So now they're thinking, and they're in this major war firefight for their lives, and
Mm-hmm.
they're really not.
Right.
They're really, really not. Um,
I think we did kind of cut past the part where Marva was talking about the clanking. It
oh
was like,
yes,
it's not about, you know, the noise now, it's when it stops. That was a very
oh
powerful line
yes.
for her.
Well,
What does
because
that mean?
because you had the two guys, you had the older seasoned guys. You're just like, yeah, you should shut up. You should
Right.
really hear, but it's not when it's making the noise; it's when it stops. And then the young guy's like, well, then what happens? I'm just like, at
And
that
she
point, you
goes,
go,
"Hmm,
oh, oh, she got you. She got in your
yeah,
head, dude. You're done.
yeah.
You are done.
Now, wasn't it after the firefight where um Cyril, I guess, like they catch up to Cyril?
um,
I can't recall if that was before before they get
well,
to their main escape.
okay, so who catches up to Cyril?
Um, Cassian and
Well, okay,
Luthen.
so as they were leaving the foundry or whatever,
Hmm.
I think no, not that guy. Where the girlfriend was where Bix, they had sent somebody had sent someone ahead to give them a message, and
Hmm.
they got over to Linus and Cyril and told them that they weren't in that location anymore, and they thought that they were going to be coming back through here. And
Right.
so his plan was to station everyone in this, like the main
Yeah, split
drag,
up. Right.
just split up. And you could see just for like a split second, Linus was just like, "Oh crap, what are we going to do?" And then he goes, "Okay, we're gonna if we separate here, they have to come through here. We'll catch them in a firefight." So everyone so everyone was trying to go and kind of hide,
Hmm.
you know, and Cyril goes to like a door and he punches a button and the door like opens and there's some creatures in there like they were running out and he shoots at them. He's like,
Yeah.
"Poof," like just I'm just like, oh dude.
Not ready for combat at all. At all.
But at the same time
He's
they're
on edge.
pumping each other up because even when they first went to Marva's place,
Hmm.
they opened the door, he was feeling himself then. Cyril was just like,
Right.
yes,
Right.
why are you hiding him? Yeah, he was, as long as Cyril and Linus are together, bad things are gonna they just keep doing stupid bad things. But
Yeah.
they are all set up, and that's about the time where so he's crouched in the doorway. He's crouched in the doorway. He closed the door to where he just had a little narrow slit that he was going to shoot at. He had a little blaster, and he's looking out. And then all of a sudden, you see this gun comes back to his. I love that gun. It goes to the back of his head, and it has something that flipped around, like the center cartridge just kind of flips.
Yeah.
I was just like, "Oh, that's cool." And he's
That
like,
yeah, that's a good prop.
"It's like, how many of you are there?" And Luther says, "Kill him."
Yeah. I would.
Just like, we don't I don't care, just kill him. And you Cyril was like, there are 12
12.
14
14.
14
Yeah.
12 and two officers. He was giving it all up.
Oh yeah.
uh, but and even then he was just like, kill him. So they sneak out over to, because they uh, uh, Cassian, Luthen asked Cassian, "Okay, how do we get out of here? What's our best bet?" He's like, "We need a speeder," because he told him his ship was like 40 clicks away. There's just no way they could get there walking in time. So they get over to the speeder shop, and they're like, "Well, how many charges do you still have?" And he doesn't answer. Next scene, you see the speeder, and I think I think the speeder was a modified speeder from. 'Cause I think it's the same speeder, but it's got a top and stuff on it that from Solo.
Okay.
I think I have to
Okay.
look, but it looked very similar in
Yes.
shape.
Yeah.
But it's like here it comes, and the speeder comes blasting down the street, and they just all start shooting at it. Just
Right.
they're just trying to stop it, and even the one guy's just standing like right in front of it. He's like bam, 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 and I guess they hit something right, and it kind of flips over and just crashes in the middle of the street, and everyone comes out, and they're
Yeah, I
all
know,
patting
right?
themselves
Yeah.
on the back, just like
Satisfied.
yeah. But that's about the time that someone they had taped up Cyril somewhere in the back, and he's like, they're getting away, and that's about the time you see them blast out of town the other direction on a speeder bike, and as they were speeding off, he hits the charge because they loaded the speeder up um, with explosives, some of the explosives. Guys are flying everywhere, and at that point, Cyril is shell shocked.
Yeah.
He's literally just, and Linus is like, "Sir, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of," because they, in their minds, they're under. I even wrote it. He says, "We're under siege."
Yeah.
Uh, uh they're like, you're you're not under siege. you're.
Yeah. I mean, that's
It was two guys.
right.
you know?
Right.
So they just all they knew is they needed to get out of there.
Mm.
And so, they're helping their guys up, and they're like all bloody and just
Yeah. He's
jacked up.
Linus is calling on the radio. I don't
And
know to who. Maybe the
well,
the
because
the main
there
ship.
were three drop ships
Hmm.
that came down, and so they had the East team and the North team or whatever, and so um, but you see Cassian and Luthen just blasting off across the plains. I think it was a really good overhead shot
Oh yes.
of there was like those retention ponds or whatever, and
Yeah.
it was just like grass, then water, then stuff, just different kinds of stuff in these things, and it was just this beautiful shot of them just going with the trail
Yeah.
off
It
down
was.
to
Oh.
his ship, and when he gets to the ship, I guess when he's like boop, boop, or he did something, and the ship just starts to open up, and Cassian's like, he has like no clue as to what's going on, but then didn't they went to a flashback of when he was a little kid, and
Hmm.
like he
He
wakes
wakes up
up
on the ship.
on the ship, and there was also a scene before that where I don't know where the flashback was, but you see Marva carrying him, you see B carrying pulling a sled that has a bunch of those fuel cells or whatever that they were after, heading back to their ship. And then so once they're on the ship, they're flying, and you can see like the sunlight coming in through the window, and so you get the impression that it's not that Cassian's sister got taken away from him, or whatever at some point. He got taken away from the
His
people,
family, his
his family,
tribe.
his tribe.
Yeah.
So I would have to assume that he's gone back there, and there had to been some kind of thought that they made it off that planet, or else he would not have been looking for them at whatever point.
Well, hopefully in
He,
season 2 we will have even more flashbacks,
well,
which they're pretty good about the flashbacks and they're well timed.
okay, I guess so. My question is, with all we know at this point,
Hmm.
I think on up until now, I think the MacGuffin is his sister. So, do we need to actually find his sister?
I don't think so. I'm not sure what good it would do. Um, if like let's say he were to come across her in season 2. I mean, like considering what we know in the future, what's how this story is going to end, I could see it like him running into a sister and then her not caring, like probably just thinking, "Well, I thought you were dead." I don't
Right.
think it would be like a welcoming um interaction so much. It would be a like, "You should probably get out of here," like, you know,
Maybe they were picked up by the Republic and they
Republic.
became, so she's on the Republic side. She's actually a
That would be
Republic. That
crazy.
would either
Oh
that or
man.
they find out that he well, if he finds out that they actually did kill them,
Mhm.
no, I guess why would he be looking for it? He had to
He
There
has to
has
have
to
a
be some
reason.
kind of reasoning to think
Yeah.
that they made it off the planet.
That's a good question. Yeah.
So, but as they were flying off, Marva's piloting the ship, and she, hits. Oh, that's what I forgot. Okay, so as they were getting onto the ship, right? They walked by a panel, and he hits a he the dad the
Clem.
what's Clem. Clem hits a panel, and the panel pops down. He sticks something in it, and he pushes it back up. To me, it looks like the same panel that Cassian boom boom and hid the thing in. So my
Mm.
assumption is that that ship still exists in the present time. It's in that junkyard somewhere. It's like hidden, or it's just like maybe that they don't want anyone to know that that ship is operational or whatever, or maybe it's not operational anymore.
Mm.
Um, and that's his hideout. That's where he stays
Yeah,
on that ship.
yes. That's
But
exactly what that is.
they're flying away, and they're kind of flying into the sunlight, and then that's the same time that you see them on Luthen's ship flying away. Maybe it's the reverse. You see them flying off in Luthen's ship, and then you see them flying away
Yeah.
in in uh, the other ship. So it's I will have to say, by the time we got to the end, I was, I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah.
By
Yeah.
episode 3, I'm
All
all
that
I'm all in.
happening, and then you have the score playing at the end, and you're just like, "Oh man, this is." That's just how I was like, "This is a good show."
See,
I love that score.
it's starting to grow on me. It really is. Although I am still kind of at the beginning. I'm because I always skip past it because it asks you, do you want to skip the intro?
It doesn't matter. Even
And
when you
so,
skip the intro, you still gotta watch the 30
right,
seconds
I'm
of
just like,
Andor. Like, where's
why
the
did
can
you
I
do
skip that too?
both?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just
I
like,
just thought that when I started watching it earlier today. I was just like, "Oh, I can't skip this though." Like, you're just gonna
maybe.
throw in 35 seconds of this
Well,
intro?
they're fat and satisfied with themselves.
Yeah, true. True that. And
So,
speaking of, I don't know if you're like big into, I know like the score isn't that big of a deal, but there is a few videos floating around where apparently someone layered all of the scores from this, and it's crazy. Like it seemed like they were all meant to be played together or
mm,
broken down separately. I just think that's really interesting.
I
People
I could see
really,
that. I could see that.
we haven't gotten there yet. Um, but people really like the song like 3 episodes from now when he's on, not I mean, we're not I mean, we're years from now, we're not spoiling anything, we're just talking about the show anyway, but that when he, makes it to after the job,
Hmm.
and he's just like he's got his credits, and he's on that nice planet. I don't know if you know what I'm
Oh,
talking about.
okay.
Yeah, people really like the transition song for that one. Like there have been because I went looking for a remix, couldn't find one for the
Hmm.
for the at least I couldn't find any ones that I liked. but people really like that song. Like
Well,
there are so many.
you'll have to bring
I
that
have to
back
drop you a
up.
link. Yeah,
Yeah, when we get there, because it's not
yeah,
coming to mind for me right now. I'm
gotcha.
just, you know what, I'm living in the moment, and
Yeah,
right now, I still say of the three, this is obviously the best of the three so far. But you
most
couldn't just
definitely.
watch it without having the context of one and two. So basically, it felt like you had a good intro, then
Hmm.
it dipped down, and then you had this.
Yeah, and that's how
Uh,
it's supposed to work.
yeah, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
I, I, I I want my stories to go, uh.
yeah. I mean,
And
yeah, it's got to
this
plateau a
one just
little.
kind of, it went up, episode one, and it didn't dip. It just kind of flatlined, because I feel like
Yeah, it
episode two
plateaued.
didn't really have anything going. It just like you brought me up to here, and you just stayed there, and then now they've raised the bar.
Yeah, we had to have.
So
Yeah, episode 2 was more of like a information filler.
yeah, so
You
I
know,
can't. You know what? If I'm being fair, I can't complain. I
I
can't.
don't.
It's
I
I'm
don't
good.
think that beyond this. I mean, there are some episodes that plateau further on, but for the most part, it seems to just be an upward um, direction in terms of the story progressing. I'd
Yeah.
say. Um, I do. I'm thinking of one episode way far in where I was just like, why are we doing this?
No, right.
Why
Well, yeah.
now? So I think that would be another plateau, but I understand why it needed to take place as the show came to its close, though.
When I'm watching these, I purposely don't even look to see how many episodes there are in a series. So I don't know when I'm halfway through or whatever, because
Mm,
then I start to get that anxiety of, well, you need to pick up the pace. Or,
yeah, I always
I
do.
just, or you sure haven't given me, if this is only 6 episodes, you sure haven't given me enough information to really care. And we're already on episode four.
Yeah.
So,
I usually don't check until like episode 3. Then I'm like, all right, how much more do I have of this? That's kind of how I ended up realizing I had 12 to go through. I'm like, dang,
yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
That is a
Well,
lot. And that's
that's
not a complaint.
right, right, right. I
It's
mean,
not a complaint.
that's
If it's a
kind of
good
what we
show.
want. We went through so many years. I used to be able to say we had gone through so many years without Star Wars that uh, it pretty much any bit of story we get now is a blessing. But it's been a long time since we haven't had Star Wars on a regular basis in our life. I
Real Star
mean,
Wars at that.
so I mean, it's been, we've had it for a while, so I really can't make that complaint. But
Right.
um, it was that's the end of the episode. I only made myself one page. This episode felt short, but it there's a
It was
lot of
like
things
40
happening. So
minutes.
yeah, I think it was 42 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, but it went fast.
Hmm.
So I don't. It wasn't necessarily short, but a lot of things happened in a very short amount of time.
Yes. Once things
So
started taking place, man, it was just
hit
cut, cut,
once
cut,
that
cut.
boom, boom, boom stopped,
Yeah.
because when it did, I think that was the moment the speeder came through.
Hmm.
It was like boom, 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 and then it just, because it was, the silence was deafening. It stopped, and then everyone, Cyril, the security guard, everyone was just like, "Uh oh."
Hmm.
So, and that was the point where the two guards that were with Marva left. They
Right.
went running out. So,
Should have brought more than 12.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
yeah,
trying to keep it under wraps. So, the low number that
but
keeps them from.
you know what? Well, anyway, they were just all full of themselves.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, I guess we're ramped up for episode four.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else? Did
No,
we
not
cover it
really.
all?
This was an action-packed episode when it finally kicked in, and I mean, it was everything I expected. I will say maybe a small thing like the firefight initially, you know, it was all right.
Yeah, it
There
wasn't
I feel like
spectacular.
it could
No.
have gone better. I don't know. I feel like I could have got that device.
No,
You
really.
know, I don't know why he couldn't get it, but I feel like I would have gotten it. I wouldn't have just
Right.
left it over there on the table to begin with, but
Right.
they were surprised, whatever. But that's my only note. That's my only note. I
Okay.
could have got it.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of thinking the same thing, but yeah.
Yeah,
So it was left for a reason.
right.
So
That's
we'll
true.
probably see. It will definitely come back in a later episode.
Right.
So that being the case, we'd like to hear from you.
Yes.
Let us
Please.
know where you are. Are you on top of this? Are you feeling what we're feeling?
If
Are
you've
you
seen
not?
any of it before, you know, throw a rant on there. I'd love to read a rant.
Oh.
Did you
Okay.
like it? Did you not like the show?
And tell
Let us
us
know.
why.
Yeah, please.
But until next time, we will be back with episode 4 of Andor. This has been the Mediocre Bottler,
And Andre from Indie Arts Midwest.
and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Pew 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 pew.